So as mentioned, Charlotte Roberts, I have the privilege of serving as our VP of e-learning at UWorld. You'll notice today I'm going to talk a lot about the CPA exam. Of course, I'll share a little bit about UWorld and our test prep products towards the end. However, the title of the presentation is Gain Your Competitive Edge. So I think it's one thing that the more you know, the better informed you are. But the truth is that what can we do as far as your approach to the CPA exam to help ensure that you're more competitive as a professional and especially as a grad coming out of the program. So a little bit about UWorld before I officially get started. We have been helping students, over 2 million students over the past 20 years, help with a wide variety of test prep. So you'll see there, for example, students that are studying in nursing, medical, we have bar review for my future lawyers. If you're in the room, you've heard me talking about, I have 2 kids in high school. They're in our AP courses and our SAT prep, right? Remember that? It's not that long ago. The joy of studying for the SATs. As mentioned, I serve within our accounting and finance. So I help students that are focused on the CMT, CFA for my finance, and then CMA and CPA, which we're talking about today for my accounting students. Specifically with our CPA exam prep, we are very proud. Our students, it's more of an efficient way to approach the exam. Our students are passing the exam 3 times faster, and we're very proud of our 94% CPA exam pass rate. I will share a little bit more about all of that, as mentioned, more towards the end of today. So the first thing that I want to cover before we actually start talking about the exam and the structure and the test study strategies is the incentive on why you want to pass the CPA exam as early as possible. So we work with hundreds of firms throughout the country, employers, government, and we let them know, we come in, we do their new hire trainings, their intern trainings. We're constantly asking them, me on the university team, what is, I'm in front of students all the time. What's the number one thing you want me to parlay back to them? And consistently, it comes up over and over and over again, whatever it takes to motivate them to get the CPA exam done early, okay? So definitely that's gonna be a common thread you're gonna hear a lot about today is that motivating factor. It's going to serve you much better and of course your future employer. So a few reasons why. The first one, the data doesn't lie. The fact is the sooner that you are eligible to sit for the exam and pass the exam, the better your increased odds of performing very well on the exam. A lot of the test data shows that 1 year out of school, the pass rates significantly go down. So you'll see here on this slide, here it says the sooner you take it after graduation. It is important to note, I would actually change that to say eligibility, right? So in the state of Georgia, you're eligible to sit for the CPA exam, bachelor's degree complete, 120 semester hours. And especially here at Georgia Southwestern, you're already in that accounting program, so you're gonna be well taken care of. I've never met anyone in my 20 years that has said, I really regret getting the CPA exam done early, right? It's always the other way around. In fact, I'll come back to number 3 for missed career opportunities. We are partnering with a handful of firms right now, large national firms, that have partnered with us for what we consider, it's called our Pass Now program. It's a 6-month, extremely intensive, you will pass all 4 parts in 6 months. And it's only offered to their staff in the firm right now that cannot get promoted because they have still not passed the CPA exam. So my goal there is, although that solution has been created, don't be the person who needs that solution at the firm, okay? The second is bonus opportunities. So you may, I don't know, I'm gonna ask the room real quick, online too, through any of the recruiting, have you guys heard through some of these bonus opportunities? Like what's the money that you can get for passing the exam early?
Within a year, I think one was like $3,000, and then after a year, I think it was like $1,500.
Okay, perfect. Any other numbers?
I've heard that, and then they'll pay for the stuff, like they'll back pay you for your.
Yep, they'll pay you for the review or they'll reimburse you for the review. So absolutely on that. So what we hear is if you pass before you start, it's a $5,000 bonus. We've been hearing with some. If you pass within the first year, spot on, $3,000. If you pass within that second year, about a $1,500 bonus. Then after the second year, the conversation switches, right? We're no longer talking incentives. Now we're talking, why haven't you passed the CPA exam at this point? Keep in mind the bonus offer, it's an incentive. Incentives are offered to drive a certain type of behavior. The behavior that they're looking for, again, for their benefit and yours, is to get it done as soon as possible. And then as I mentioned, I'm blocking it, 3 kind of dovetails off 2 is that you don't want to miss career opportunities. I would even say career opportunities even through the recruiting process. So for example, my tip is as you're going through the recruiting process, if you don't have it already on your resume, add that, right? Your GPA, when are you put when are you CPA exam eligible? Set the goal, CPA exam eligible this date, and then what your intention is. Plan to sit for first section of CPA exam summer 2025, for example, okay? No problem. That's our online group.
Yeah.
Thought I heard a kid. I was like, we got the next generation studying. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah,
A little
delighted.
early.
Yeah.
A little early.
It's never too early to talk about CPA exam.
Never too early, exactly right.
So if you think about, okay, so the motivating factor, the bonus, the opportunity, what I'm gonna do, you want to gain the competitive edge. So first you're gonna wanna understand where you are in the process. Understand what's tested on the exam. That's where I'm gonna spend most of the time today. And then again, wrap up to set a game plan for success, how UWorld specifically can address a lot of the needs that you're gonna have on the exam. So let's start with the CPA exam requirements. This is a lot of text, and for those in the room, it's probably hard to read. If you didn't know it already, what I'm gonna cover here is every state's different, right? It really keeps us on our toes for those of us that cover multiple schools and candidates in different states. What you really need to know, again, as I mentioned, in the state of Georgia, is you need 120 semester hours or that undergrad degree in bachelor's in accounting in order to qualify to sit for the exam. Another way to remember it is they'll often say there's 4 E's to becoming a licensed CPA. Remember, licensure is different than exam as far as the qualifications. Your 4 E's are you need your education complete, which to be licensed as it is right now is 150 semester hours, and I'll talk about that in a moment. You need to pass all 4 parts of the exam, and you need your work experience in order to become a licensed CPA in Georgia. I mentioned 4 E's, and you're like, where's the 4th? Some states also have the 4th E, which is an ethics exam, okay? Now, there's a lot of talk. We were talking about it earlier, so you guys are gonna be kind of in the motion of some of the change. There are some states that are starting to move to different pathways. So as it stands right now, you need 120 to sit for the exam, 150 to be licensed with 1 year of experience. That most likely is going to remain here in Georgia as one of the pathways. The way that you get to the extra 150, that extra 30, maybe a master's in accounting, maybe you have an undergrad degree in something else, you did dual degrees, you have a lot of units, you could do an online program. The way that you get that 150 can vary. There's legislation that is now being considered that you can sit for the exam at 120 and be a licensed CPA with your bachelor's degree and 2 years of experience. So that is one of the pathways that are being considered in multiple states, including Georgia, okay? For right now, I just want everyone to know the pathway to licensure might vary and give you more options. To get to the CPA exam, which is where we come into play, it's 120 with your undergrad degree, okay? So work experience, 1 year, 2 year. I recommend if you have any questions on this, my contact information will be on the last slide for those online and in the room. I'll definitely point you in the right direction. But when it comes to licensure, my recommendation is to actually partner with the Georgia Society of CPAs. They're going to be the prime authority on that particular topic. All right, so set your CPA exam game plan. As promised, this is where we're going to be today. So for those in the room, you have 2 flyers. This first flyer actually has this picture. This is the new CPA exam. So as mentioned, well, let me ask a show of hands. How many of you had at least heard that the exam recently changed? Okay. And on a scale of 1 to 10, being, 10 is like, Charlotte, give me that PowerPoint. I can take over. I know all the changes. How many of you are probably in a 7 to 10? So you've done quite a bit of research. You're feeling pretty confident. Don't worry, I won't make you take the PowerPoint. All right, how many of you are in like my 1 to 3? Like I'm here because of this, all right? And a solid 5.
That's okay.
5's perfect. Okay, so the goal, my goal today is to demystify what's going on and what the changes are. CPA exam changed last year, January 10th, it launched a new exam. Exam's always been changing. I've been doing this a long time. It either changes with content, stuff changes, tax, etc. Stuff comes on and off, or structure. Maybe a new hour here, a new question type there. What made the changes so big last year, it was a change in both content and structure, and it was some pretty significant changes that we hadn't seen. We've got some new parts, some new material, etc., etc. So you still have to pass 4 parts of the CPA exam, right? Everyone's gonna sit for 4 parts no matter what. The difference though now is that there's 6 different parts of the exam. What's gonna happen is everyone is going to take these 3 core, and I'm gonna talk about that here today. Everyone's gonna have to take FAR, audit, and regulation no matter what. And there's a strategic order that you can go in. The new changes though is that now on that 4th section, you have a choice in the matter. You can choose between BAR, TCP, or ISC. So I would say probably the most popular question that I'm getting right now when I coach students is, how do I know which discipline is right for me? And that's something that we're also going to be covering today too. So do keep in mind, it wasn't changed just for funsies, like, right? It's a heavy change, especially on your faculty departments. It was changed because the profession is changing. Technology, the skills that you are needing as you're graduating and going out into the profession, it's evolved. The exam was a little behind the 8 ball. It needed to evolve as well. And so that's where a lot of the changes were being driven. So on the flyer, you'll also see CPA exam content. So let's talk about a little bit more into the 4 sections and what you're going to see. So as I mentioned, the 3 core that everybody has to take. Audit is going to be very straightforward. What you've seen in your audit courses, it's very much an apples to apples reflective on the exam. Financial accounting and reporting, by my group here, how many of you, show of hands, have heard like FAR is the worst? You've heard that rumor? It kind of has the big bad ugly. I would say that we're going to watch that one and see if it actually changes. FAR did not get easier in the 2024 changes, but it did get lighter. So what you're going to see on FAR today is going to be a lot from Intermediate 1, Intermediate 2, and a little bit from your government nonprofit. Okay, it's going to be on FAR. Then regulation, that is going to be our tax and business law. Regulation, look at that as routine tax, right? It's the tax that everybody has to pass, no matter what they're going to go do as a CPA, everybody has to take it. When you get into the 3 different disciplines, ISC is one of our newest areas on the exam. What does that mean? A lot of the content that is currently tested on ISC had never been tested before in the previous exam. Okay, some of it came from other parts, but a lot of it was brand new. It's definitely your information systems and controls, and I'll talk about that here in a moment, but definitely stock reports and everything with a lot of the IT talk. BAR, do you have a question?
No, well, I just wanted to say for just a second, so we have also changed our curriculum at GSW to make less required, more electives. So if we have a student who wants to sit for the CPA exam, we are really encouraging them to choose Intermediate 3
Okay.
for FAR
And
and
BAR.
corporate tax and BAR, and then corporate tax for reg.
Reg.
So if you're a CPA candidate for your electives, make sure you pick Intermediate 3 corporate tax.
Perfect. And then is government nonprofit an elective?
Elective, yeah.
BAR.
Yep.
A whole lot of government nonprofit. So same thing. So if that's going to be the pathway that you're going to take, that's a great point. BAR would be, so Intermediate 3. So that's the unique thing too, is like some of these intermediate courses, they're split. Like leases is in both, for example, government nonprofits, mostly here, but a little bit here. For business analysis and reporting, that's also where cost managerial landed on the new exam. So that would also be an area as you're kind of thinking, because remember, you get a choice in these 3. Then we're going to get into TCP. If reg is routine tax, everybody takes it no matter what. TCP, non-routine tax, more advanced tax, and personal financial planning is going to be in the TCP section. Now, the way that this works, and I'm jumping ahead of myself, is you can go in any order you want on the CPA exam. So the next question that usually candidates ask is, let's talk about which discipline I'm going to pick, and then what order do I go in? If you're already picking up on it, there is a strategic advantage based on the order you want to go in. It does not have to be the 3 core and then your discipline. In fact, if you look at it, if you take BAR, you're going to take it right after FAR. Look at FAR and BAR as sisters, okay? FAR, then BAR. Reg and TCP, same thing. I say they're sisters again. If you're going to take TCP, you're going to take it right after Reg. Aud and ISC are more like cousins, right? So it's not as a direct hit from one to the other, but pretty dang close. So what I'm saying there is, if you are going to take BAR, you can go FAR, BAR, Aud, Reg. FAR, BAR, Reg, Aud, Reg, FAR, BAR. Point being, whatever Tetris you do, you're going to put your discipline right after its core relative. Make sense? Don't wait until don't do TCP and then be like, I'm going to do Reg, Aud, FAR, then TCP. There's a strategic advantage to that. Okay, so accounting roles related to ISC. It's really important to note, no matter what discipline you pick, it does not add anything extra to your initials. You know, you're not gonna walk in and be like, I'm CPA TCP. It's gonna mean nothing to anyone, right? In fact, I would say your faculty have been well ahead of the evolution changes than the candidates. I'd say than the firms, right? It's like, it's not really their problem. It's just, aren't you gonna pass the exam? I think you get a choice in the matter, right? Like, that's not our issue. So my other kind of pro tip, other than putting it on your resume when you're exam eligible, is I would also be prepared to speak to what discipline you think you're going to sit for. Not because it's changing recruiting patterns. We've been consistently talking to our firm partners. They're saying, we don't care what section they pick, just pick the one that they can pass. But you should be prepared that, and not caught off guard, that they may say, oh, you're gonna sit for the exam this year, didn't it change? Don't you get to pick something? Be prepared to be like, yeah, we do. And this is the one I'm thinking about picking. Not that it's gonna change what they're doing, but it's gonna show that you're like, hey, I'm really taking the ball, I'm owning this, and this is gonna be my CPA exam future, okay? So you'll see here, ISC, definitely internal controls, IT advisory, a lot of IT audit, SOC reports, definitely tested heavily on the ISC section. BAR, we're gonna get to our financial analysis reporting, advisory, management, government accounting, financial operations. My students going into audit or advisory typically are choosing between ISC and BAR. And then TCP, no surprise, more tax consultant, tax preparer, tax auditor. Remember that personal financial planning with the wealth manager, and then financial advisor for our TCP. So I can't poll everybody online, but I will poll my group here. Based on what you've heard today, how many of you think you're gonna go for BAR? Really?
Is that a no, Connor, or I'm not, you're not gonna do bar
He's
first? Say
I think
why.
he's going TCP. Yep, I saw your reaction to TCP.
Tax man, so Connor,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
tax guy.
Okay, what about ISC is interesting? TB, how many of you are TBD, like to be determined? Okay, so do keep in mind, what's the passing score on the CPA exam?
A 75.
A 75. When you are in school and you get a 75, might not feel that great. When it comes to the CPA exam, you're absolutely thrilled, right? Because you did exactly what you needed to do in order to pass it, and you didn't spend too much more of your life on it. Keep in mind, once you sit for your discipline and pass your discipline, that is your discipline. If you sit for a discipline and do not pass it, you can change. But I think that would really take a certain type of person, because you're doing a hard right turn, right? Like you're studying all this time in TCP, you don't pass it, then what are you gonna do? Like go pick up information systems and controls? You could, but I just don't see that as much as a reality of what we're gonna see. Okay, so this is kind of what Professor Taylor was mentioning. This is what I love about this particular slide that you're all looking at is you are already interacting with the CPA exam, right? Like you don't have to wait for my presentation to come in here and learn all about the exam. You're already interacting with it. So first of all, that should give you some confidence, okay? You're already, based on the courses that you're taking, you're already seeing it. Our goal as a CPA review provider is to re-wake all of this that you're learning for the specifics of the exam. It's like, would you run a marathon tomorrow if you hadn't been training, right? So the review is gonna bring it all together. This is a great reference depending on electives that are offered, perhaps what discipline you're gonna take. The other thing that I wanna point out is a lot of folks wanna put data analytics in a box. It's on all the exams at this point. So it's not necessarily like in a particular box. But do keep in mind, this is a great opportunity for you to see how your classes are already interacting with the exam today. Okay, in addition that you are already interacting with the exam today, how many of you in the room have heard of the CPA exam blueprints?
I don't know if we talked about it.
Nobody talks about it.
I
This
mean,
is like one of my favorite enlightening moments. Like,
We, the faculty,
I'll
talk about it
Okay.
a lot.
so here's why I say that it's an enlightening moment for my candidates, is because the CPA exam is quite transparent, okay? It's all laid out. You can go to UWorld's website, you can go to AICPA, you can email me, I'll send you the link. It might bore you to death, okay? But the AICPA blueprints are exactly what you're going to be tested on and then how you're going to be tested on the exam. It reminds me of like going to class and not getting a syllabus or not having not understanding what's the objective of the course. This is the objective of the exam, and it's a pretty much an open book. The reason why you probably haven't heard of the blueprints is because that's what you rely on the CPA review programs for, right? This is everything that we do. Your faculty know the blueprints because, again, they're paying attention to the skills that you're gonna have to know for your career, but then also, of course, the CPA exam. So how do you interpret them and what do they look like? The representative task on the right is what you're gonna be tested on. So this first one, prepare a classified balance sheet from a trial balance and supporting documentation. That's the task. It's under general purpose financial reporting for profit business entities, and then it's under this topic of balance sheet statement of financial position. So the representative task, I know that's what I'm going to be tested on. And then what skill level am I going to be tested at? These are your critical thinking skill levels. Anything tested at remembering and understanding is what we consider the most basic critical thinking skill, also known as a multiple choice question, A, B, C, D. That's how that one's going to be tested. Once we get into application, it's a little bit of a mix-up. Application level can be tested as a multiple choice question or a task-based simulation, which I'll explain here. And then once we get up into analysis and evaluation, those are only going to be tested as a task-based simulation on the exam. In addition, the only one that tests all the way up to evaluation is audit. All the other ones, the highest they go is analysis. Why am I sharing this information with you? Because if you leave today and you're like, Charlotte mentioned the combinations, or Charlotte mentioned, statement of cash flows, those weren't my strengths. You can go to the blueprints today and go and see exactly how they're going to be tested and then to what level they're going to be tested on. Okay, so do keep that in mind. Question? Yeah.
Do they divide it by the exam? So whatever balance sheet might be on FAR and then something else would be on audit. Does it do the blueprints for each exam, or is that for the whole thing?
No, for each exam. So it's going to show FAR. So for example, here financial report, it's 30 to 40% of the weight is going to come from area 1 financial reporting. So it will break out the different areas and then the percentage. So for example, I mentioned on reg is tax and business law. Business law is a smaller portion. I think I'm going to get this wrong, but 10 to 20%, for example. So we'll also kind of tell you where it falls into the big picture of it.
And we're working behind the scenes, Connor would be the one to do this, but if you go look at the blueprint and then go look at your syllabus for intermediate 1, this stuff's gonna look really
Familiar.
And your practice exam, the problems on the exam are gonna be things that are in application analysis.
But that's also one of the reasons why the CPA exam changed, is because they felt like the exam needed to test a little bit more of those higher order critical thinking skills, because that's the truth of the profession. The example that I say is, back in the day, it was you were preparing the document. Now the machine's preparing the document and it's coming out, and now you have to use those higher order skills to say, is it correct or not correct? So it's just kind of some pivots in it. So now you all know, online and in person, what the CPA exam blueprints are. You'll start to hear those quite a bit, and I'll address them with UWorld. So what's tested on the exam, you have the different parts, the blueprints. The blueprints are going to tell me what I'm going to see and how I'm going to see it. How in the world is the exam structured, and how will I interact with this content? So you'll see here with the CPA exam across all 6, but you're only taking 4, they're broken up into testlets. So every exam is a 4-hour exam. Testlet 1 and Testlet 2 is when you're going to see all your multiple choice questions. The goal with UWorld is that by the time you get to the exam, you are spending about a minute to a minute and a half per multiple choice question. When you first get started studying, you might have a question, you're like, ooh, I have not seen this since intermediate 1. This takes me a minute. The end goal is the time management to get you to about a minute and a half. Task-based simulations, these are more difficult problems. They have multiple areas, multiple answers. You're pushing those greater thinking skills. Those are going to take you about 15 to 25 minutes, depending on the task-based simulation. I do point out, task-based simulations are intended to be more like the real world, right? I don't go to work every day and take a multiple choice quiz, okay? But I'm given a problem. Is it correct? Is it not correct? Where do I need to fix it? I'm going to be given exhibits and a memo, an email, some kind of a spreadsheet. Does this actually apply to helping me learn the answer or not? And that's going to be the thought that I have to go through. Okay, so as you look at the testlets, things to note, fun facts. When you move on the exam, you're in Testlet 1. Let's do audit. 39 questions in Testlet 1. You can hop around as much as you want. Question 1, 39, 25. You can go as back and forward. Once you check out of Testlet 1 and you move on to Testlet 2, you don't get to go back to Testlet 1 ever again. So here we are again. You're in a great program. you'll know the content and you'll be willing. It's running the smart race that you also want to plan for on the exam. Same thing, Testlet 2 or 3, 4, 5, task-based simulations. Another kind of hack for my group that are going to be a little closer to the exam. There are throwaway questions in there. You just don't know. They're testing questions to see if they should stick to the exam or not. So you won't know those. Don't sit and stare blank screen and spend time on a question you may just not ever get. Just pick your answer and move on. When you get to the task-based simulations, what we recommend is, for example, let's say there's 3 here on the SPAR core. Open up 3 really quick, do a quick skim, take a look at all 3. Let's pick the one you feel the best at and go for it. Don't start with the one that's the most difficult for you, because if you run out of time, why aren't you showing off your skills on the one that you feel like you can really crush it? Okay, so do keep that in mind. Now you'll see here on the far left, your right, score weighting. All of the exams except for ISC are 50-50. 50% of your score comes from multiple choice questions, 50% of your score comes from task-based simulations. The only exception is ISC is a 60-40. So they have a little bit more weight on the multiple choice questions for ISC. Remember what I said at the beginning, ISC, and I didn't say it, TCP are the 2 newest sections of the exam. There's a lot of brand new material that had never been tested before on those 2 areas. Keep in mind though, I think it's perspective. So someone might be here like, oh, 60% is multiple choice, 40% TBS, ISC. Well, look at the difference though. BAR has 50 multiple choice, ISC has 82. Of course, it's gonna be weighted a little bit more. It's got significantly more questions in that bank, okay? So do keep that in mind. My final thought on the CPA exam breakdown is it's a 4-hour exam times 4 times. When was the last time you sat for 4 hours? No smartwatch, no phone, no technology, no one talking to you, no one allowed coming to the room, no interaction with other people for 4 hours straight. We don't do that very well. I fly all the time for work. I still get to watch my phone when I'm on the plane. I can read a book, right? So one of the things that we do at UWorld is we have, it's called our exam simulator. And you do this closer to your exam day. And the whole goal is that you are going to basically simulate the 4-hour testing center. We tell you what to do, get rid of the watch, get rid of the phone, the distractions, and actually practice what that 4-hour marathon is going to look like closer to exam day. So do keep that in mind.
Can
All
you-
right.
Can I take a picture?
Yeah, of course.
Can you do that frequently, or is that like a?
Unlimited.
Okay.
Yeah. But our recommendation is that you would do it more like halfway, 3/4, and then closer to the exam day. If you sit down and you do it like, let's try FAR, and then you have nothing, you're gonna be very overwhelmed. Yeah, could you imagine? So, not ready for it yet.
It's okay if I also take a picture of the blueprint, the exam.
Oh, yeah. Do you want me to go, I can hop back to that real quick. There you go. Happy to. The blueprints will make even more sense too when we talk about how to prep. Okay, CP exam pass rates. These will look a little light. All right, so here I just did a whole presentation in Atlanta on CP exam pass rate. I think everything has to have context behind it. So I'm just gonna call it out right away because everybody's eyes eventually hit it. TCP has a very high pass rate. Okay, here's my context behind it.
Let's go.
Those people are usually really.
I'm gonna do, okay. The audit, FAR, and reg have remained pretty consistent with the old audit, FAR, and reg, right? We haven't seen anything take a nosedive. We haven't seen anything like completely perk back up. With the disciplines, this is what we expect. We expect all 3 disciplines to be closer to the core sections over time. You'll see TCP started to drop a little bit. Here's what's happening if we're gonna like open up the history books. Before these 3 existed, you had odd, FAR, reg, and BEC. When the new exam launched, some of the material on the old reg transferred over to TCP, okay? So if students took old reg and then TCP in the new exam, some of it they had already seen to some degree because they had seen the old reg exam. In addition, because of the nature of TCP, it's chosen by people typically who are already working in tax, really love tax, or I say like tax is their jam, right? So they love it. And so this TCP number, we met with the AICPA, we definitely anticipate it's going to continue to level out. The thing that I want to drill home is I do advising sessions weekly with students, and I'll say, which discipline are you thinking about? And if they say TCP, the first thing I'll say is, why? If they say, where's my pass rate? I'm like, we need a timeout here. You need to look at what's on the TCP section. The high pass rate should not be enough for you to choose this discipline. It's advanced tax, okay? And it's a lot of material that had never been tested before. You have to know what you're doing in order to do well, or you're not gonna be getting in this pass rate much.
Do you
All
have an idea of how many people are choosing each?
So most chose BAR, and then I think right behind it was TCP, and then ISC. Yeah, so I do have slides I can share it with you as far as volume goes. And then we're waiting, I actually think February 15th is when we're gonna get Q4 data for all the pass rates. But I'll tell you from our perspective, we knew that this would happen when you got a choice. Everybody was gonna kind of wait and see, watch the pass rate. That should not be the main primary reason that you choose your particular discipline, okay? All right, so I'm gonna keep going. So testing and score release schedule. Again, if you talk to anybody who was trying to sit for the exam last year, it was a nightmare. The testing, it was like you could sit in January and not get your score till May or June. Like that was rough for our candidates last year. They've really closed that window. So you'll see here continuous testing. That means you can test all year round. For example, if I'm testing today, I'm gonna hit by February 14th. I'm gonna get my score release February 25th. That's very quick compared to last year. Okay, the one that will still be the exception is the disciplines. Disciplines are only offered certain times of the year. And then we do have a little bit of a wait for their score release. So you'll see here, my January folks are all waiting for that March 14th date. What's important about the disciplines is, again, this is part of the advising and what we do at UWorld, is if we were to get on the phone right now and I was to say, okay, what's your plan? You say, Charlotte, I'm ready, I'm studying BAR. I want to sit for BAR in March. I'm gonna be like, no can do. It's not even offered then. So that's something that you want to think about when you're doing your time management and planning your studies. But we're very excited to see our core sections have returned to somewhat more of a normal score release. All right, other things about time management. I'm in kind of a time management train right now. So credit extension decisions by jurisdiction. How many of you had heard that you had 18 months to pass the exam? How many of you knew that you have 30 now? So this is new legislation. So you have 30 months to pass the CPA exam. Georgia's in the green, it passed, I know. So you have 30 months to pass all 4 parts of the exam. A few things that I'm gonna make a point on here. One is you actually need the 30 months to pass 3 sections because you can study for your first section and your clock's not ticking. So keep that in mind, okay? And then also I'm gonna show you credit period. So in Georgia, the date of the score release is when your 30 months would start. So you get a score release, you pass the CPA, you pass your section, that's your 30-month start date. Charlotte Roberts advice here, I'll say it. 30 months is great, but it's 2.5 years. How many of you want to be spending 2.5 years of your life studying and trying to pass this exam? It's not going to happen, okay? Use it as an exception. Use it as a parachute. If you do, what was that first slide? Pass the CPA exam as soon as possible, as soon as possible, as soon as possible. And you say, Charlotte, I'm good. I planned out my life. It's going to happen. You pass 1 part, you pass 2 part. Life happens. You need to take a temporary pause. You can take a deep breath. You have that 30-month and you're not going to lose your sections. Do not use that as the rule of, I'm going to squeeze this for 2.5. No, we're not going to do that. Plus your employer is not going to want that to happen either. Another way to think about it is you want to try to get the exam done before you start work. We talked about the big bonus. However, if you do encounter that you are working, the reality of trying to study during busy season is going to be quite difficult. This allows you for that busy season break and not have to worry that you're going to lose your exam scores. Because if you don't pass in 30 months, you start losing scores. And so you're going to have to sit for sections all over again, right? Procrastination is not your friend on the exam. I like the deep breath, but it's an exception, not the rule. That's mine. I'll get off my soapbox on the 30 months rule right now. Okay, so lastly, you want to establish really good study habits. So the first thing is you want to build a support system. So this is going to be your family, your friends, your significant other. Let them all know if they don't know already. Like give them the footnotes of today. Be like, all right, here's how my life's going to look. And this is what the exam is going to be. They're going to support you. They're going to drop off, I say, like the iced coffee. I joke around when you're studying. They're not going to give you a bad time if you're like, Friday night, I'm curling up with bonds on my Friday night. They're not going to give you a hard time because they're going to be rooting for you. One of my favorite from building a support system is I was at a program and I was at a school and the professor, she had passed all 4 parts of the CPA exam and she said her dad drove her to all 4 exams to the Prometric Testing Center. And he sat in the car and read a book just because she was like, you know, trying to concentrate and get the exam. And so find that support system because they're going to really be cheering you around. They're also going to be the ones bringing you like cake, balloons, bottle of champagne once you pass all 4 parts.
My study group.
Study
I'll
group,
say like try
Yeah.
to find a partner.
a buddy.
That's also a buddy.
Mhm.
Same firm, different school, doesn't matter, but find some, even if it's like, you can even find like credit groups, like.
We have
find-
a Facebook group for you
find
old studiers.
somebody who's
Yeah.
going to test at the same time as you and try to go test together on the same day or.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great, they're going to affirm what you're going through when you're kind of having those moments like you're banging your head up against the wall. They're going to be like, I'm right there with you. So I do agree with that. You want that support system. You want a support system, and then if you can find someone who's literally going through the same experience that you are, that's going to mean even more.
I mean, I think you power up your studying too, because one person's strong areas and not another.
Yeah.
one's.
It's almost
So-
like
Yeah.
a gym buddy, like, you know, when you go to
Accountability,
you're gonna do
too.
better than your.
Exactly,
somebody.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, would you recommend working at the same time as studying? Like, because I know that if you're working with a firm and everything, you're kind of getting those like, even with your just your working, yeah, you're getting your experience to kind of like back it up. Or do you think somebody should just like sit out for a little bit and just hammer it?
So I think it depends on the person as far as what they can and can't do, right? Some are like, I have to be working while I'm studying, and others have an opportunity where they can take a break. I would say you don't need the work experience in order to master the exam. So, you know, that's why, for example, some students and other programs, they're studying for their Masters of Accounting at the same time that they're studying for the CPA exam. So they can double up, you know, kind of double dip in essential, like I'm in an audit course and I can study for the audit section. I would say that, again, that depends on like someone's financial situation, life and planning, but I wouldn't say what's good is go get a year of experience because then that's gonna help you on the exam. Everything you're learning right now in school plus CPA review prep will be exactly what you need for the exam. Yeah. So clear your calendar and distractions. It's a moment in time. The goal is that you want to pass the CPA exam the first try. The reality is oftentimes a lot of candidates have to take a part again. Not everybody passes the first try, but you want to do all that you can for a moment in time, make that sacrifice so that you can have this thing behind you and not, again, be taking it for 2.5 years. Study at the same time every day. How many of you, you know, the early risers, like you're best in the morning, that's when you hit your lane? That's me, yeah, okay. Talking to students, I know what you're all gonna raise your hands on. All right, let me guess. Okay, how many of you, it's that mid-afternoon, like I'm ready for a cup of coffee and a nap, you're hitting your jam. Mid-afternoon, all right, and then what about my night owls? It's usually, yeah, lion's share is usually my night owls. Whatever works for you right now, don't change it. Just roll with it into the exam, right? Going into the CPA exam, which is like the exam, is not the time to be like, I'm gonna completely redo how I study. Do what works for you and replicate that. I will say though, whether you're a night owl, mid-afternoon, or in the morning, if you do find yourself studying while you're working, I would highly advise figuring out how you could try to study in the morning before you go to work, because when you get home from work, it's gonna be harder to kind of boot up and your mind's gonna be done by the end of the day, okay? Customize your year-old study planner, I'll show that in a moment. Schedule your exams early. You take your exams at a place called Prometric Testing Center. They test a lot of different exams, not just the CPA. They do book up, but it's quite easy to book. It's like booking a reservation. You go online, AM, PM seating, oftentimes 6 days a week. My advice for Prometric Testing Center and scheduling your exams early is if you have one that's closer to you or more local, and they have your time and date, great. If they don't, and you're like, no, Charlotte, I'm gonna be ready for FAR on April 5th. Like I have to take FAR on April 5th. That's how I plan my life. That's kind of my, the way I approach things. And your Prometric Testing Center that's closest is not available, look for one a little bit further, right? So you have to determine what's more important to you, the location or the actual date. And then schedule your advising session. I mentioned it a few times here. For you all in the room, my information's on the back of one of the flyers, and then also I'll have it up at the end. I do complimentary advising, 30 minutes. We can get on a video chat. I call it like CPA exam therapy. We can talk about what's your study plan, especially if I propose anything today that you really have some big questions on. So to finish it up, exam prep. So of course I mentioned I'm here with UWorld. We are one of the industry leaders in CPA exam prep. You'll see here completely new product. That was for the Evolution. So we felt at UWorld that the 2024 CPA evolution was such a monumental change that it was time to kind of reshift and redo our entire product from the ground up. What does that mean? Some review providers we've seen have used older videos from the past, like this is still tested the same way, so we're gonna keep that particular video, but then they wrote the new books. And so the students are kind of reporting, hey, like the video's not referencing the book, something's not matching. UWorld, we rated everything, whether it was on the old exam, new exam, everything was refilmed, everything was rewritten, and every single question was revised to all focus on the new 2024 exam. So in particular, it's an entirely online program. Your three main components are your questions, your lectures, and your ebook with a bunch of other tools that are built purposefully around it. As far as the lectures go, we are extremely proud of two of our head global instructors, Roger Phillip and Peter Olento. So both of them have been very successful helping millions of candidates pass the exam the past 20 years. Roger Phillip, UWorld acquired Roger CPA Review. That's how I joined the UWorld team. And then last year, Peter Olento, who had been at another review provider for about 20 years, also came and joined UWorld. So we are thrilled that we have kind of what are considered two powerhouses in CPA review prep within UWorld's course. And this is literally kind of the videos you're gonna see. If you're not motivated to study, you're not gonna be passing the exam, so we try to make it as lively as we can for you. Peter and Roger are joined by a wide range of other academics and industry professionals. The thing that I want to point out about UWorld's lectures and lecturers is all of them have worked in public accounting. That's not necessarily always the case with some of the other providers. We also have quite a bit of great academics here. So for example, Dr. Carnes and Dr. Youngberg, they write one of the Wiley tax textbooks. So they teach a lot in Reg and TCP because they are the experts in those areas. Another one that's kind of my favorite is Puskar. He's featured a lot in our ISC. You'll see there his credentials, including the CISA. So he talks a lot about it from a real world experience. So the goal is you're not only gonna learn it for the exam, but let's pick up some real world experience within the course. What's this? You've seen the picture of it. It's the blueprints. Everything at UWorld is mapped to the blueprints. So content group, topic, task. Chapters in our book, chapter 1, current period historical analysis including the use of data. Chapter 1, current period historical analysis including the use of data. Topic 1, financial statement analysis. Lecture 1, financial statement analysis. Every single item in the blueprint you can map to the lecture video, the area in the book, and the question set that goes with that particular blueprint area. So that was something with our new course that we designed. So again, here's mapping in the book. I'm gonna kind of pick up the pace here. So I mentioned questions. So a lot of students think that the way that you approach the CPA exam is doing thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of questions. UWorld, we really believe that there is you do have to do a lot of volume of questions, but it's the quality of the questions that really matter. So the AICPA releases the same batch of questions to all the review providers every year. It's what we do with them that makes each of the review providers uniquely different and where you're gonna wanna shop around and find the best one that fits your learning style. This is an example. Which functions do freely fluctuating exchange rates perform? And then the answer, this came actually off of a Reddit thread. The student was struggling to understand what the correct answer was and use this example. So it says here, you can't read it, says, but as we have mentioned in our explanation of other questions, sometimes questions that are released by the AICPA are released because they'll never be used again or were test questions that didn't make it into the reoccurring database. This may be the case with this question, but it's a good learning experience for candidates as questions like this may appear on any exam. Then we get to the answer. According to the examiners, it appears that freely fluctuating currency exchange rates correct a lack of equilibrium in the balance of payments. It is clear that none of the other choices is correct. It's unclear what the statement in C, the correct answer, even means, but it's the correct answer and we know that none of the others are correct. So you can imagine how frustrated this particular student was. Because you first look at it and you're like, there's an answer. So I found it, and I said, I wonder if this is an AICPA released question because we would have the same one. Which functions do freely fluctuating exchange rates perform? UWorld. Freely fluctuating exchange rates perform which of the following functions? The first thing is, you can't see it because it's too little, there's percentage next to each answer of how many UWorlders are selecting the correct or incorrect answer. So you can know how the level of difficulty. Then, our answer explanation. Everything starts with an illustration, a graph, a chart. A lot of students identify as a visual learner. They love the visuals. They can make flashcards off of them in the system. If the visual is used in the question, it's also used in the lecture. It's also used in the book. So it's consistent learning. Then what was missing from the other answer explanation is why the correct answer is correct. We believe that you should be able to learn right in the answer explanations. And then an answer explanation on why the 3 alternatives are wrong. I don't know about you guys, but when I was a student, I needed office hours with my professor when I was getting it wrong, because I don't want to keep applying the same logic. I need to know where I went wrong so that I can move forward successfully. So we believe just as much as enforcing the correct, you need to know the incorrect. Every single question is linked to the lecture. Let's say you are a student who said, you know what, I just got done with intermediate 3, I'm rolling into FAR, I'm studying it, I don't necessarily want to watch the lecture videos. Can I just go to the questions? Absolutely, you can start with the questions. If you start to stumble as you're in them, you can link out to the videos and watch those instead of having to watch lectures and then videos. Make sense? Okay, so the last few ones here just are on some of the technology tools. This is SmartPath technology. So SmartPath, what this does is it gives you 2 key targets. The target number of questions you have to practice and the proficiency. We're measuring both. If you practice a lot of questions but you're not understanding the material, it's not going to be good for exam day because you've done a lot of volume, but you're not showing that you can understand the material. Other way around. Let's say you're looking to cut corners, you take a quick 30 question quiz, you get 30 out of 30, you have a false sense of confidence, like I'm good, I'm going to move on, I'm trying to cut corners. SmartPath will actually tell you, you did do very well, but you saw such a small set, you haven't seen all the different ways the AICPA likes to test this topic, you need to work more volume. SmartPath will track your progress, you hit the right amount of questions, you get the right score as far as proficiency, it's going to tell you to move on. You do not have to do every question, watch every video, and read every single aspect of the book. SmartPath is our 94% pass rate and where our students can pass the exam 3 times faster. You do not have to use it, but why wouldn't you? Okay. Last one is the study planner. So remember I mentioned this earlier, the CPA exam study planner, the way that this works is you go into the system, or this is an advising session with me, and you say, Charlotte, my plan is I want to sit for FAR April 15th. I say, okay, let's put it in. And then what does our life look like? And you may say, I don't want to study at all on Tuesdays and Thursdays and Sundays. Okay, so we're going to work with Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday. What's your ideal? You're like, 2 hours a day. So we'll put in 2 hours a day on those days of the week. The study planner is going to tell you if your goal is that March or April 15th that I said, this study schedule, you're not going to hit your goal. All right. So what it does is it says you either need to move this goal out or you need to beef up the study plan. Once that lands in the right algorithm, customized for you, every day you log on, if my study days are Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday, it's going to literally say, welcome to the UWorld course. Today you're watching this, practicing this, doing this, and these are the scores. Watching, doing, practicing. Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday, I don't have assignments because I didn't tell them that I was available to study on those days. So the study planner is what keeps you on that time management for the marathon training. So do keep that in mind. Last one's here as we get closer. Catherine Elizabeth Sanchez, she's one of our examples. The goal here is that, you know, we don't want you to keep taking the exam over and over. We want you to pass all 4 parts, especially the first time would be the great win. Simply put, it's a big investment of your time and your money, or your firm or your employer's time and money. The goal is to really practice and study smart so that you can get this behind you. Lastly, GSW, you guys are one of my primary campuses. Always appreciate the invitation to come out, especially also for my online students, whether it's now or in the future. If you go to UWorld, you try our 7-day trial, and you really feel like UWorld is the course that's going to help you accomplish your CPA exam goals, I always am able to offer a unique discount for students, saving you a couple $100 off of any discounts on our websites. I'm sure my information is on the flyer, including the discount. Also, it's for the online students, and I'm sure if you ask any one of your professors, they would also be able to parlay that information back to me and help you out on that. So definitely recognize it's a big investment, so there's some great opportunities to get a little extra savings. So with that, I invite everyone, scan the QR code today, so that enters you into one of my scholarship drives. I do those every spring and fall for a full CPA review course. And also keep you as far as exam changes, or with the Georgia legislator, as we kind of start legislation, as we see things change, it would keep you in the know. So with that, I think I'm done. My only last thing that I want to say is that I am also looking and hiring an ambassador for GSW. So if you're a student, you have at least 1 year left of school, and you're interested in it, you can email me. An ambassador is that you're a UWorld ambassador. You get some flyers, you get some pens, you get to share it with other students. Of course, every time I come on campus, but the bigger value is that you get to put it on your resume. and you get a free full CPA review course from day one. So that is a unique opportunity for us. We believe in the day one because as you're studying, you're gonna love it, and then you're gonna be able to talk to other students about it too. So if you are interested in the ambassador position, you can email me and I can send you some information on how to get started and apply for that. So with that, any questions? I gave a lot.